This seems like as good a time as any to take a break from the body. Let's go work on the neck for a little bit, why don't we? To start, we need to make a blank. Gonna go with a 5-layer center stripe on this one. Black, maple, with a Wenge centerboard on a flame maple neck. This one's gonna be pretty. Thanks, Tom, for this little trick about drilling holes in the end and using skewers for alignment. I don't know why I didn't think of it sooner. This is also my first go around using epoxy to glue a neck together. In the past, I've had problems with the center stripes becoming proud after sitting for a while, so I'm wondering if it's a moisture content problem. So I'm trying something a little different. Quick pass through the drum sander to clean it all up. I'll spare you most of it. Just marking out the location of the skewer on both sides so I can avoid this for my headstock. Preparing for the scarf joint as we speak. Better mark which side's up here. And toss in my 10-degree angle wedge. It's a lot easier than using protractors. Normally I'd make this cut on the bandsaw, but I'm not feeling it. I clamped that board on the side as a way of keeping myself square to the neck, hopefully. Yuck. That's going to take some work. Little alignment trick here. As long as you don't have leather faces on your vice jaws, you can use them to help align these parts, so you don't have to fight it in 3D. And for those of you out there who think scarf joints are really daunting, they're actually not that bad. I'm no hand plane expert whatsoever. Take a look at the lines this thing is leaving behind. I still manage all right. Give it a shot sometime. Seriously. So I'm checking to see if my scarf joint is square by using the square. It's not, so I need to plane away a bit more where it extends past the line. And then check to make sure I haven't put a curve in it using the flat side of the square here. A little scraping for cleanup. And last check. Make sure everything's still good and square. Scraper blade is just a visual assist. Now, because I'm some kind of crazy person, I'm mixing scarf joints and fine center stripes. But here's the thing. There's a trick to this. And that little trick involves a lot of masking tape. Come on. Can you even build a guitar without masking tape? I know I can't. So I'm going to lightly tape the front face into alignment first. This one's not super precise, but it's a starter. Then flip it over and properly align the back with a full piece of tape across it. This will function as both a hinge and a way to keep the scarf joint from slipping apart. Plus, if you're using a headstock veneer, the front face is covered, so slight misalignments there are more tolerable than misalignments on the back. I'm going to burnish the tape down so it doesn't go anywhere. And now remove the temporary piece so we can hinge open the joint and apply glue. And while we're doing that, I will explain something. Why do I not just use a couple boards to keep all these pieces in alignment? It's pretty simple, actually, because most of the time when I cut the two parts of the neck to be able to put the center stripe in, they're not exactly the same dimension, and we need something like 1/4 of a millimeter precision here. So unfortunately, the only way to do it is visual alignment, because sometimes one side is just ever so slightly thicker than the other, and when you cut it to flip the scarf joint, it doubles the error. I've tried it. It doesn't work. And now a couple leather-faced blocks to clamp just the scarf joint area. Masking tape will keep it from sliding apart, and these will apply the needed pressure. Just got to do a tiny touch up at the tip to square it off, since all router bits leave round ends. And now to mill out the fretboard on the CNC. This will be technically the first time I've ever done this. I have some testers, but that's about it. So the inlay's supposed to look like some frosted over branches, and it's entirely acrylic. There's no shell involved, hence I'm being a little aggressive with the hammer. A little bit of a gap fill, and filling in the stem with some baking soda. For those of you looking to cut fretboards on a CNC, you're going to want a radius before you cut the fret slots, because the depth of the bit is just not tall enough to pull it off any other way, unfortunately. So for good measure, I went ahead and put my personal order of operations for cutting fretboards with the CNC on screen. And now onto the neck. I don't particularly find cutting truss rod slots all that enjoyable. I don't find any art in it. So I'm going to let the CNC do that from now on. So I'm just going to run a facing pass so everything's flat to the CNC. and then cut in the truss rod slot. And use it to face the scarf joint, because I'll be using this to cut both the back of the headstock, and eventually I will use it where the neck tenon goes, so I know exactly what the scale length is. And a basic outline so I can cut it out on the bandsaw later. Now talk about a satisfying finish. And now's where I give you the big reveal. The neck that you saw me milling isn't the one that ends up on the guitar. Instead, a copy is going to end up on it. Why? Because trying to cut the heel joint sideways like this is an absolute alignment disaster. Trust me, just don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth the pain and suffering at this point. Get a long router bit and come from the top down. So the previous neck didn't include carbon fiber reinforcement strip. I decided to add some 1mm thick ones, but I also used some Purple Heart to fill up the remaining gap so I could use an 1/8 inch router bit. What can I say? I'm a little bit on the cheap side. Toothpicks. They make excellent alignment pins. So, because I cut from the top down with a rather large 1/2 inch, or about a 13mm router bit, I have to square up the joint by hand with a chisel. What? I can't have the machine do everything now, can I? At least, not yet. So first things first, I need to set the thickness of the neck at the nut and the heel. And then connect the 2 points in a straight line. It should be noted, I don't particularly care how it looks other than right along the center line, because the rest of it's getting carved away anyways. Add some facet lines that are halfway out from the center line, and then halfway up from the fretboard to the back side of the neck. Also, I'm a sucker for a good spoke shave. I'm not so much into the rasps. Add some new facet lines that are halfway between the original set of facet lines. There's some more complicated math to it that I've seen for varying your different profiles. I just use it as a rough guideline, then cut to feel after. And now to hand carve the volute, or however they choose to pronounce it. That's my best guess. These Iwasaki half-round rasps are probably some of the best money I've ever spent on a hand tool, quite frankly. I'm going to get the bigger ones eventually. But even they struggle with maple end grain a bit. Now I'm going to use the sandpaper where I'm pulling over the edges here to try and round out the faceted profile, and using a little bit more of it up close to that taper transition. Somewhere there's an inappropriate joke about the hole not being big enough. I know how to fix that though. Just some brass tube filled with white side marker inlays. As far as I'm concerned, they're classy and very visible. So, I'm not overly in love with how the scarf joint transition on this one looks. The change in grain direction on the maple really stands out kind of badly. So, I'm going to apply a veneer backstrap. I'm applying some packing tape to this Zero Cote because it's very crack happy, so it needs reinforcement. And because I'm using a vacuum press setup, I'm going to cut it to a rough outline so there's less pressure and less for it to wrap around the sides. I've had problems in the past with that. Just a little bit of tape to keep it lightly aligned. I don't need massive amounts of pressure here. For those of us who tend to lose track of which fret we cut last, sticking something like that small wooden knob on your fretboard as a marker is a great way to keep track. As long as you remember to move the marker. Sometimes I forget even that. Also, removing the tangs on stainless steel frets. Ouch. I'm sorry, the camera deemed this process top secret, so all you get to see is my fingers. To the guy on the camera, I know, it's pretty, but remember what you came over here for. Yet you were getting ready to do something. Right, you were getting ready to sand the neck. Okay, good. Back on track, minion. Back on track. Just gonna start here at 600 and work my way up to 2000. And just what do you think you're gonna do with that sandpaper? Thank you. That's better. I'm just checking the depth of my slots here. They should be good considering I used the CNC to cut these. My major concern is right up by the corners where glue could have gotten in and left a little bump. Here I'm taking a fresh scalpel blade and I'm actually grinding off the edge to form basically a micro chisel so I can pick the corners of these slots clean without slicing into the edges. Makes a tough job a little bit easier. Not by much. Now, don't fret. Oh, no, wait a second. That's not right. I'm only tacking these in because I'm going to use the fret press to finish them off. I just need something to keep them in alignment. So this is why some people put their frets in before gluing the fretboard to the neck. Yeah, I saw this coming, but it's still annoying. What? You didn't want to play an acoustic cheese grater? Yeah, me either. I know so many of you have probably already seen a level, crown, and polish job on YouTube somewhere else, so I will spare you from mine. I'll just give you a couple of the small highlights. Sharpie on the tops. P220 on the beam, sanding with a light pressure. We'll flip to 320 after. Point out the annoying low spot that every fretboard must have. To borrow a phrase, polishing, polishing, polishing. Neat trick. Polishing puts enough heat into the fret that you can actually rub the polishing compound on it and it will melt some. It helps with dispensing. I'm just going to say thanks for watching now and let you watch the last part of this.